Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to I'm Perfectly Divine podcast. You can see there's someone here with me, and this someone is someone's very special to me, someone who I have followed for years, and I don't say that about many people. And this person is Kari Samuels. Kari Samuels is an intuitive happiness coach, and she really is a trusted guide for me when it comes to astrology, numerology, chakras, magic, you name it. She has a full wheelhouse when it comes to our spiritual growth and really understanding ourselves through our intuition and through these spiritual understandings that have been passed down. And she has a special connection to help us break down this information and integrate it into our lives. So welcome, Kari. I'm so glad and honored to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for that warm and heartfelt welcome. I appreciate it.
Well, like I said, I've followed you for many years, and so I have a lot of questions for you.
Sure.
But I like to start off when I have a guest to really tune into your sense of this podcast title, I'm Perfectly Divine, which is this notion that our human journey really is the perfect opportunity to help us remember our divine essence. But I'm curious if you feel that way. Is that something that you connect with? Yes,
Oh,
no?
sure, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah,
I
sure.
haven't, I have maybe a different take sometimes too than a lot of people because I feel like, well, I don't actually know your audience as much, but I know a lot of empaths come to me and they're fine with the spiritual essence. It's actually the earthly part that they
Got it. Yes.
So it's like I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And I think we can actually relate to being a spiritual being. But it's like the human experience, I think, is the most challenging.
That's why I created this podcast. And as an empath, that was my journey, right? It was like I
Yeah,
loved the spiritual connection, but my
exactly.
embodying it in our
Yeah.
human selves was a challenge for me, and really understanding that our human challenges are here for us. So I would love to hear more about your connection to the divine, what you call your connection to spirit, and really how that has started and evolved throughout the years.
Well, I have always, okay, I'm a professional intuitive and psychic. However, I as a child was not one of those people that saw like dead people at the foot of my bed. I always hear these mediums like, oh, I had these experiences. And still, even after I started doing professional psychic readings, I was like, when am I going to be psychic? Because
Mm.
what I realized is we're all very intuitive and it's so natural because it's a sixth sense that we don't realize it. So I actually had a somewhat different experience in recovering and reclaiming my intuitive abilities because it was natural. It's very natural to all of us. And that's one of the things I like to do is teach intuition.
Which you do.
However, I will say that when I was a child, I was obsessed with past lives
Mhm.
and life between lives. I would think about what happens on the other side and why we're born, our life planning. And so it wasn't so much in terms of like spirits and dead people, it was more soul planning. And as it turns out, that's my specialty as an intuitive. My intuitive abilities are more focused on the past, like past lives, karma, soul planning, than it is on the future. Because when you heal your past, you create a better future.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So share more about that. I love hearing, first of all, your how you differentiate yourself with just even like, yeah, I don't see dead people and
I don't.
I,
I talk to guides, but I don't even like I'm not like, hey Fred. Like I'm just like they're it's almost like a team of light, right? So I don't even name them, which I know a lot of people are like, you need to know your spirit guides, and you actually want to make sure you're connected with your highest level guides. But we have a lot of guides that come and go depending on what we're working on. And how freaked out is your audience going to be? How woo woo can I talk here?
oh, you go woo, Carrie, go woo.
Can I just be, be myself, right? Excuse me. I'm gonna actually this is a mug I made. It's I'm supernatural. So it's like you're
Ah,
natural, but you're supernatural.
I love that. See, we have our self-expression mugs.
I love it. I love it. So we tell me your question again. I got all sidetracked.
So I was just speaking to how you differentiate yourself, and really, it's not about you channeling people, dead people. It's really there's an importance to you about going into the past lives, as that
Okay.
impacts our presence.
Right. And that's probably why I forgot the question because it was about me. Because because I really think this is a rule that applies to everyone as in terms of healing our past. So we go in, we're very focused on the future, but we have these subconscious programs that are running in the background that can prevent us from creating what we think we desire because your subconscious can desire something else. Your subconscious is always desiring to protect you.
Yes.
And so, what I've really come to understand through my experience doing readings is that we come in with the plan about what we want to experience. And some of those experiences bring us subconscious programming that is challenging.
Right.
You get it from your childhood. However, you plan your childhood to help you recreate the past life programming that you've really had over and over again. So I know we like to blame our parents. um,
We get over that on I'm perfectly divine. We're past that. I mean,
okay. That's good.
yeah.
That's good. And so we have these we come in with things that we want to heal. But I want to remind people that if you come in with a challenge, it means that your soul has decided that you're strong enough to overcome those challenges.
Yes.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have come in with those challenges. On
Right.
the other side, you and your spirit team and your soul guides are like, okay, what do you want to work on this time? And and okay, let's recreate some of the things that you have, the patterns that you've accumulated over. Now, of course, I came in believing in reincarnation, and since I've had my experience doing readings with people where I can see people's subconscious programming from past lives, it validated it for me. And also, hypnotherapists have validated things that I saw as a child. So I feel validated about, like, there is some truth to what I say, right? Now, whether it's like how our human brain imagines things, it's still valid because your imagination is your subconscious, right? So this is like whatever it takes to heal, right? You
And
don't you don't
yeah.
need to believe in past lives to have your subconscious protecting you, right?
And running your life.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, like even though this is a strong belief of mine, it's something I came in with, and I don't focus on past lives because the reason you recreate your karmic patterns. Karma is basically just like a repeated imbalance over and over and over again.
Mhm.
That's why we have the scales. So when you have these karmic imbalances in your subconscious, it's best not to focus on your past lives. That's the reason the myths always talk about the river of forgetfulness. Like you come in because this is the only life that matters right now. And that's why you forget that you had past lives and things like that, because really you need to focus on it in the present. And you don't need to know what the previous incarnations or whatever. It's your subconscious that's recreating that. It's just in terms of like life can seem unfair if you don't understand like why that happens. Because in my experience, the older souls come in with more challenges because you're like in graduate school. And
Yes.
so the older souls tend to have less validation from the outside world. They tend to have more issues around abandonment and neglect because the older souls are meant to learn how to individuate more.
Beautiful.
And that's where the past life understanding helps because otherwise you'd be like, this is random, this is so unfair.
Right. Right.
And that's the only way that it like where I would invite people to like just think about it from that perspective, you know?
I think that's beautiful and very validating for people because I feel that this podcast gets the older souls that have gone
Yeah.
through a lot and yeah, it's another level of integration of self is how I would phrase it that we're learning how to do. Now, I'm curious, how are you exactly seeing their subconscious or what do you see?
I know that's an interesting question that I never actually thought about it in that way. How do I see the subconscious? Okay, so I feel
You feel,
things.
yeah.
Okay. And actually, the way I do readings is like I almost feel textures. Like I sometimes do this. It's like spidey senses. Like I will feel an energy of you remember the Charlie Brown cartoons where like Pigpen had like
Yes, right.
swirly energy?
Yes.
So sometimes, like if somebody has something spiky, it's like an anger thing. And then so I'll feel it in my body. And then I'll ask myself, what is this connected to? And then I'll see a picture of something in my head. So it's all the senses. Your sixth sense is really like a very extended awareness of your five senses. So clairsentience is like clear feeling. And that's what empaths tend to have. Their bodies are picking up on things,
Yes.
right? So we're always interacting with people, and we're always picking up on energy from other people and feeling it in our bodies. I've trained myself and other people actually to say, okay, let me recognize that I'm feeling a shift in energy here.
Mm.
So what is that? Okay, it feels like swirly, it feels like regret. Like I'll feel what that feels like. So I'm almost like a barometer, like I feel my energy against the other person. And
Yes.
then I'll ask, what is this? And I'll receive an image. Or I'll hear something in my head. I'll hear a word or I'll hear a thought. And I will ask the person, okay, I remember this one instance. This is when I was still doing one-on-one readings and in-person readings. I was like, she was asking about her love life, and I saw mice,
Mm.
and she started to bawl because she was single and she had mice in her house, and she wanted a man to help her with the mice.
Ah.
And then I heard the word father, and then so it's like a series of events. Like
Right.
it's like you're picking up puzzle pieces, right? Like using all your senses, right?
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
so, and then we started talking about her father abandoning her. And then our spirit guides are talking to us through our senses and our dreams. And so our spirit guides started talking about how so I would hear words. I would start to hear about um, why the abandonment would happen and how she took on the responsibility of her mother, and that was a karmic contract. So it's like that's how it goes. It's like one image, one feeling, one word, and I've trained myself to tune in, to listen and pay attention to those things. And this is what I teach people when I teach intuition, because our intuition is always talking to us, but we don't listen to it. And that's what I'm saying. It's very natural. I remember before I realized that I was psychic, like shaking someone's hand and having an image of something in my head as I would shake someone's hand or something. And we tend to override that intuition. We tend to think, don't think that about this person. That's not nice.
Right.
Because we think we're being judgmental when we're actually being discerning.
I love that. Absolutely. And so, how has this gift of yours
Gift of
been
ours.
of ours? You're right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's not, this is why I'm saying, like, you ask about me, I like tend to forget the question because I'm like, this is all of us.
You're absolutely, it's true. I mean, because I do the same thing in my work, and it is a natural gift. It's why our emotions are there.
Yeah,
It's all to support us to remember, to
yeah. It's a sixth sense. It's a sense. We have it. We just have been trained. Don't get me started on the patriarchy. We've been trained not to listen to it. We've been trained to be ashamed of it. Like if you are in, it is the patriarchal thing though, because if you're like in a business meeting and you say, well, I'm getting a feeling or I have an intuition, like that's like not like that's overrode. Like we have to say, this is what I think.
yes,
You can't talk
right.
about your feelings or your images or your intuit. You can't. And like, I mean, you can in my business, but like in general, it's not accepted.
Yes, we've been taught some of our greatest internal gifts. We've been taught to ignore, dismiss, think of them as a weakness when
Yes.
they are a part of our powerhouse and
Yeah.
really are there to bring us to love, inner peace, uh,
Yes.
and to resolve these pieces from our past or within our
Yeah.
subconscious
Yeah.
that we can uh, how I look at it is to receive or to really be that outcome of what we also intended when we agreed to go through these challenges, right? And
Yes. To come on planet Earth.
yes.
Yes.
So then how does this all tie into your your gifts of astrology and what you know in these other spheres that inform your work and how you share? Because monthly you do an astrology forecast for the month that
Yeah.
I always loved. How is
Thank
that
you.
tied into to what you do and how you understand
Well, the
us?
universe is always speaking to us. So we're going through life feeling like there's no weather forecast, there's no sense of things, everything is random. When in fact, astrology is an ancient art that is a map for us. It is a weather forecast. Numerology is a map. Now, I use astrology and numerology also, not just in forecasting universal events. I use it to look at people's past life influences as well,
Interesting.
because we come in with a blueprint of what we want to work on. And that's in our astrology chart, that's in our numerology, that's in the letters of our name.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have been studying astrology for, I don't know, at least 30 years. And it's accurate in telling us what we're going through and why. It's a map, it's a celestial weather forecast. It is one of the many, many ways that the universe is telling us what's up. to me, it's like, again, it's like intuition. If you have this tool, why would you not use this tool? So basically, everything I do is to help people understand what the universe is trying to tell us, and that nothing is random.
Beautiful. And so, how would you support people? How would you support people listening in right now to say what would contribute to them building their intuition? What would make it stronger?
Well, actually, I have a free intuition course on my site that guides people through a few steps. The
Perfect.
first step I always start with is grounding,
Mm.
because it seems, again, this is how we come full circle here, because we tend to be reaching up, up out here when we look at intuition. And as I've mentioned, your body has so much of the answers, but because we're always like, oh, it's somewhere out there, it's actually learning how to tune in and say, okay, first I want to make sure I'm in my body grounded and I'm on planet Earth, because this is my soul agreement right now to be on planet Earth. Grounding and cleansing your energy. So it's like you don't have that pig pen energy, so that you can be clear and receive the information that your intuition's trying to tell you. Pay attention to your dreams. My husband and I talk about literal dreams, not like just our dreams, like in terms of like fantasies and daydreams. Like we literally say, what did you dream about last night? Because they're messages for us. So there's that. And um, you have to learn to not dismiss your feelings. So instead of being like, is this,
Thank you, Carrie. That's right.
yeah,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
yeah. And again, like we're overriding, like, oh, is this just my imagination? Is this just being me judgmental, me being judgmental? It's like, well, your imagination is your link to the spirit world and co-creation. So pay attention to what images come into your head. Pay attention to what feelings come into your body. They're talking to you. Pay attention to, well, unless those voices are telling you to harm someone, but like, that clairaudience, which is like you hear the words come into your head, like, what are they telling you, right?
Yes.
Most of the courses that I created is because I would keep hearing certain words downloaded, and so I'm like, oh, I should write this down and like make something out of it, right?
Absolutely. Well, so what is one of your favorite ways or a couple of favorite ways to clear that energy? How do people know if they're in that? And for people who are younger, what we're talking about with the pig pen is it's basically this dust that kicks up all around you, this whirlwind of dust.
Whirling.
And yeah, and it's whirling. And I think this is really fascinating because we are in a world where there is, um, we're getting curated versions of people online, and you don't see their whirlwinds that they are potentially in. And I think this also comes down to trusting ourselves to that in order to trust ourselves, we have to clear the whirlwind. And it's also going to help us get clearer
Hmm.
about what is actually true. Because,
Oh, yeah.
right, the world's getting manipulated, and our
So
brains
manipulated.
are not capable yet of keeping up with it, but our intuitive knowing does when it's clear. So,
Mhm.
what are some of the ways that you recommend clearing? And do you see those pieces tied together as well?
Absolutely. One of my big motivators is thinking that, like, okay, if people can actually know what's going on energetically, they won't be so swayed by cult leaders and BS.
There you go. Yeah,
So it's because the world's kind of a mess right now because of that. Like,
The world is in the spin,
Is in that whirlwind, yeah. We're getting caught up in that chaos. That's somewhat intentional. So, because people are like, I don't know what to believe, so I won't do anything. And I am a warrior. I'm a peaceful warrior. Like, I believe that, like, a lot of empaths hide and just don't want to deal with things. And I feel like we should be strong enough to be courageous and have our light be brighter than the darkness that is in the world. And so I am always wanting to empower people to shine more brightly as opposed to saying, this is too much, I can't take it, let me just retreat.
yeah, it's not healthy for us either, emotionally.
Yeah, to just retreat.
Yes,
Because
spiritually.
then things just catch up even more exponentially. Like you can't run from the problems in life. To clear your energy, again, I would always start with grounding. And I like to imagine a waterfall of light washing over me, washing away any lower thought forms and vibrations, just washing away until my energy feels clear and buzzy and bright. And you can visualize light coming out of your being like a light bulb extending, like how a light bulb has light, but then the light extends beyond that. So you can just imagine your light extending and being strong and calm and yeah,
Well, I like the descriptor. I like especially the word buzzy
yeah,
and calm. So
yeah.
can you speak more to that? Because
That's true. Like how does it how it's a life, it's a vitality. Is vitality. Because last night I did this event and I asked people to first tune into their energy. Like if you can imagine like the 5 feet around you aura, like what does it feel like? Does it feel, and some people were like, I feel calm and it feels good. And which is great. Like if you can feel that right now, right? So, which I thought was wonderful. But afterwards, after I guided people through this prayer and meditation and exercise, people felt more like electrified in a positive way. Like it's light that has a vibration to it.
ooh, yes.
Yeah. And so it's not just like stagnant, it's alive.
I was just going to say that aliveness.
Yeah,
Yes.
but grounded. So you're grounded, like electricity needs to be grounded. So you're grounded and bright.
I love it. That's a great
Yeah.
tool right there.
Yeah.
So with this, it reminds me, you have a new podcast out, and a lot of it is about talking about magic. I'm curious if you,
Practical magic. I'm a Virgo.
oh yeah, that's right. So can you share more about this being a skill versus this being a part of, or not even versus, or but a skill and a part of life's mysteries and how you bring it to us to make it practical.
Well, again, we've come full circle. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. And I think when people hear the word magic, like it sounds like it's out there. And I'm always trying to remind people that you're cultivating magic every day.
Mm.
And it's important to see the magic in the world when it feels especially like there's not a lot of magic in the world, but there is magic every day. For instance, here in Portland, I have what I call the cronado. I always go out at like dusk and and there's thousands of crows just overhead. And I'm like, that's magical. But but what happens to me a lot because I'm very nature oriented, I'm supernatural, is that is that I if I have a question, I'll see either a series of numbers on license plates because I have trained myself to interpret number meanings. And or I'll often see animals that like odd animals, like things that you normally wouldn't see. I remember I was stressing about something and I had the words in my head of this Australian blogger or whatever. She would always say, "Don't worry, possum. Keep it simple, possum." This is when I first moved to San Diego, and I opened up my door and there was a possum there. And like, if I draw an animal card, like I remember I drew like stick bug. I didn't even know what a stick bug was, but I opened my door and there was a stick bug. So
Oh,
like, so like there's animals that are unusual. Like you'll see a raccoon or coyote or something that you wouldn't normally see, and it has a meaning for you. And I'm always looking for the messages through synchronicity, and that's a magic activity.
I think that's so well said because you use the words, I trained myself to see. And
Mhm.
I would add to that to see, to know, to understand. And
Yeah,
that's so much of also what I do in my life, but what I've also worked on helping people do to understand their emotions,
yeah,
empowered lens. And what we're saying is that it's a choice. It's a choice to learn skills
yeah,
will allow you to work with the universe and
yeah,
yourself to make
yeah.
life easier. And it's understandable that you haven't been taught how because these are the exact skills we've been taught to dismiss.
That's right. Like there's something to be ashamed of.
Right. And instead, you've really reclaimed it and embodied it. You know, I've trained myself to see, to know, to understand
Yeah, yeah,
signals, this guidance. I would even say, not just even unusual animals, but for me, like birds with flight patterns. If a bird wants to get my attention, it's like
yeah,
zooming, right? Like,
yeah,
or hawks will start circling right by.
yeah. I mean, that's a big message.
Yes. So it's that beauty of feeling connected to the magic and the fabric of the universe,
Yeah,
that life itself we've been trained is separate and that it's something we're to conquer or our logical minds know better, and
yeah.
really that reclamation. Um, and so can you share more about how that reclamation has served you personally? Like, how does that impact your life, your outcomes? Share more about that, please. Uh-oh, you might have some tech difficulties. Let's see. Little frozen. So let's see.
Hi.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know what happened.
Oh, I don't either, but it's okay. I'll be able to, I think it sounds like it's just continuing the recording. So I think we're okay.
Yeah, it says recording in progress.
All right. Mercury's in retrograde. So I knew I was
It
like,
really is. I mean, and I've had so much yeah, it says this meeting's being recorded. So
okay,
hopefully you can be able to
we'll
edit
see.
what you need. I have a tendency to mess up anything electronic.
I'm glad it's not just me. I'm the same way. I'm like, oh my gosh, technology. Awesome. So, do you mind we just pick up?
Please do. That's fine.
Okay. So I love what we're sharing here about being training ourselves to pick up on these aspects that we've been told to ignore. I
That's right.
think it's important for people to hear, how does this impact your life, your day to day? So can you speak to how you working with the magic of the universe, the fabric of the universe impacts your day to day or impacts the outcomes that you feel you've been able to receive because of this of training yourself to see.
Training my, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, again, it's like training yourself to listen to one of your other senses. It's like, how do you even live? I mean, people do obviously live without one of their senses, but it makes it harder.
Yeah.
So basically, it's like, well, now that I've trained myself to listen to another sense, it's everything, right? For instance, anytime I make a decision, I will, and we have millions of decisions every day. I've trained myself to listen to my body. I've trained myself to listen to my literal dreams. I've trained myself to listen to the voices, like the thoughts that come to me that are empowering.
Mm.
For instance, again, every time I do a course, it's because I'll hear the words in my head and then I'll write it down. Um, so when you have a decision, large or small, but especially a large decision, instead of freaking out and going up into my head, right? Which of course, is natural, but to remind myself, okay, let me get back in my body and let me feel into this.
Mm.
Let me feel into whether this feels opening or closing, or is this, because that's a way to know whether you're responding out of fear or an actual desire.
I,
Like, I think I need to do this. And then you talk to your body's like, nah, that's not, no.
no. And so what I hear for you is you feel in your body somewhere
Yeah,
contraction. Now, for you, do you find the contraction is often in a certain place, like in your solar plexus or your
solar
heart?
plexus typically.
Okay. Is that for everyone or just for you?
No, I think a lot of people it's their solar plexus, but it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Everybody's different, right? A lot of empaths do feel it in their solar plexus, but it could be an emotion even. Like, I'll think of this and my heart constricts. Like, it could be anything, right?
Right.
It could be, oh, I think of this and I feel sad. I think of this, I feel dread. I think of this, like whatever it is when you're thinking of, and maybe you want to take a moment to project yourself into that probable future and then feel what that's like in your body.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, that's one thing I do. And actually, when I do reading, that's part of what I would do for a person. It's like, I'll imagine themselves in different scenarios and feel what that's like in my body. Yeah.
Ah,
Because a lot of people have trouble seeing things when when you're in fear, like you're in
yes.
a situation that's causing fear, and it's human to like have trouble like seeing things clear. And that's part of why those mediums who do talk to departed loved ones can't always get through to the actual loved one. It'll come through like a neighbor or something, because like if you're in that very high emotional mode, which is part of being human, it's hard to receive messages.
That's right. Yeah, beautiful. So we naturally started talking about the chakras. I love talking about chakras, and
That's nice.
yeah. So I would love for you to share more how you see them, interpret them, work with them. I mean, you shared a little, but can you share more about any specifics of how you work with them?
Well, I'm very focused on the lower three since my upper chakras have always been super open, but I got into problems because my lower three were not grounded to the earth.
Mm,
I know it seems counterintuitive to be like, oh, I need to focus on the lower ones to get more intuitive. Yes,
yeah.
because that's where earth happens.
Yes, Virgo friend. She's telling us
Yes,
we got
yes, that's where earth happens.
that's where Earth and our connection to our humanness
Yeah,
happens.
and I'm constantly reminding myself to connect to my root chakra, especially. Like it's a daily practice.
Me too. Yes, it is. So, what's the difference for you if you're not giving energy to your lower chakras?
Well, first of all, your lower chakras is what connects you to community, your sense of safety, your immunity, like your willingness to be in your body, everything. It nourishes everything. It's like a tree that has no roots. Like, how can you possibly grow toward the light if you have no roots? So, money, everything is connected to the root chakra, really. And I'm also very focused on, well, the second chakra is super important because we're like a no fun culture.
I love
And,
that. Yeah.
and it's important to have fun every day. And oh, I'm asking my body now to, okay. So as you know, my father passed away in November. And obviously it's a tough time, but my father loved disco. Okay. He was a gym teacher and he did a lot of workouts to disco. And so every night, every night I would dance to disco as
Oh,
like to honor him
oh, I
and
love
have fun, like joy, you know? And actually that is part of what helped me. I started this like art collection and t-shirt collection of like retro disco stuff. And so it's like, it's fun.
it is
So
fun.
his death actually inspired this joy. Um, and I know we're taught to feel guilty about that, but that's it. Like it's important while you're grieving to move the energy around with joy. That's why, you know, some people have their funerals as parties. It's like you want to celebrate the person. So I would dance to disco every night by myself. I still
Oh,
do actually. And so like, so this second chakra is very important. It helps you tune into and process your emotions, but joy is a big part of that because I think a lot of us are motivated by guilt instead of joy. And so your third chakra is super important because that's what protects you from your energy. So I talk a lot about instead of shrinking up to like really radiate from
mm,
your solar plexus.
yes.
Not
Well,
just your heart, your solar plexus, like very important.
yeah. Well, say more about that. I hear that.
Well, because that is where we shine our light. And so, like, you can be radiating from the heart all you want and just be over giving. And if you don't have a strong solar plexus, you're just going to be constantly depleted.
That's right. Yes. So, really speaking about our personal power in the
Yeah,
solar plexus, uh,
yeah,
and this integration that I
yeah,
between the second sacral chakra and pleasure and how
yeah,
that fuels us so that
yeah,
we can really step into um, our self-worth and power. It takes self-worth, I think, to give yourself
yeah,
pleasure in this society that poo-poos it,
yeah,
that puts it
yeah,
on the back burner
yeah,
constantly.
yeah, yeah.
I love that you honor your father with disco.
Disco? Yeah, it's
I
the
mean,
best way.
it really is. And I can just
He
picture,
loved it. He loved disco. That was his thing. I mean, and Motown. He loved Motown. I love
um,
Motown. I love disco. So like easy peasy, you know.
do you have the staying alive motions? Do you have the dances down?
I'm actually a pretty good dancer, and so was he. So yeah. He actually, unlike him, like he is not a woo-woo. Like I said, he was a gym teacher. He is not a woo-woo person. He was not like a man of many words. He was a classic like Brooklyn gym teacher.
Okay.
But like disco, like it's shared language, you know? So yeah, disco and Motown. Because
Okay.
it's music you can move to, and I've always loved dancing and and that's yeah, it's something I've always loved anyway. And he was a good dancer.
Oh, how fun. What a beautiful connection there. And as I'm always teaching with emotions, is that we experience the whole spectrum and the opposite of those challenges as we grieve or go through death. If we really lean into that, it allows us that greater expression on the other side of what you're saying,
Yeah,
of the joy of the play. And
yeah,
which is such a beautiful reflection of honoring.
yeah. When I pass away, I want people to be laughing. I
Ah,
mean, I want, obviously I want them to be like, oh no, we'll miss her, but like
Yes, right.
I want them to remember me through laughter because I
Oh,
like being funny, like I like having a sense of humor. So anyway, that's one way I'd want people to remember me. So if they're not laughing at one point, like I did something wrong.
right, right. Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I so appreciate everything that you shared. I think it just weaves into so much of what we talk about on this podcast, that really how uh, to understand our human selves from this lens of working with our innate divinity and opening ourselves to the gifts that the divine, the universe is always offering up to us. And so I think you have provided amazing examples of around that, and also supportive uh, tools. And I highly recommend joining Kari's list as a part of her monthly forecast. It's always helpful to me. It's like she said, it's a heads up on the energetic weather that's ahead, because this has been a practice, a study for thousands of years, and it
Yes.
stayed the course for a reason. Um, Kari, is there anything else that you feel drawn to share that would complete our conversation?
Yeah, the one thing that's coming to me is don't judge your feelings and don't judge your thoughts.
Mm, yeah, say more.
And actually, it's contrary to the thing we're told to not be judgmental. Sometimes your thoughts and feelings will seem like judgments of other people, but they're actually discerning intuitions. Again, I really want people, they judge themselves for what they're picking up on. So I would just start with try not judging yourself first. That's where I would go. That's where I would lead.
I love that. And I'll just add to that, that to me, you're speaking of trusting yourself,
Trusting.
trusting your inner guidance. It's coming through. And
Mhm.
how do we open ourselves to receive? And I think the more that we learn to receive whatever is coming through with compassion for ourselves, it tends to be less judgmental anyways,
That's
because
right.
we're
That's
just
right.
bringing in greater understanding.
That's
Well,
it.
I so appreciate all the understanding that you have brought throughout the years to, you have been the first that guided me with numerology. And
Oh.
yeah, I mean, I would tune in and get the numerology with my name and and all that, and it's very informative. It's very powerful. Kari also has a podcast. Kari, what will you tell us? Anything else you've got going on? I know you're sharing many.
Yeah, Get Psyched with Kari Samuels is my podcast, and it's Kari. I am starting something called Soul Healing Sessions, which is a monthly group gathering where I talk about the astrology and everything that's going on, and we connect with our guides. And I do mini readings for several participants, and those readings are meant as teaching and healing moments for the entire group, since we're always going through the same thing at the same time in many ways. So that's at karisamuels.com/soul healing sessions. And that's going to be a monthly thing. You can join for 1 month or 6 months or a year. And it's something that is one of the things I kept hearing: soul healing sessions, soul healing sessions. So I finally listened to my guides and created these soul healing sessions, which I know are magical and healing, what we need right now.
What we need right now. I was just going to say, well, I'll make sure we have the correct links to connect with you, your podcast, and these soul healing. So thank you so much, Kari, for sharing your insights, your wisdom, your love. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Thank you so much for having me. It's a
All
pleasure.
right. Oh, wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And until next time, remember that you are part of the divine creation, and there is nothing to fix, just to remember. Remember your truth, remember your wholeness, and remember your love. Take care, everyone.